Everybody, welcome to Snow Talk. Brian Good here on this Thursday. It's more rain talk than anything. A lot of wind and rain. We'll cover that in a second. On the snowboard, we will give an update here on this freezing rain potential. And then you see the very end of the snowboard. Doesn't look as lonely as yesterday, but more days than not, it will be lonely. We'll get to that in a second. First off, let's talk about today. We've got the strong gusty winds. Temperatures already have made it up to 68 today, and that was during, I believe, the 4 a.m. hour. So very warm start to the day and very windy as well. We're just shy of wind advisory criteria. We may get close to it. We're going to be watching to see, though, as the front approaches, as how much of this convection that we are trying to get developed here on the Cross, Indiana, and the Wabash can produce. A lot of it's going to be instability that's aloft, so some of that could translate down to some gustier winds down to the surface, but a lot of that will likely be elevated. But we'll monitor the trends. You see, obviously, where the front is 66 here, 66 in Evansville, 36 in St. Louis. Even for Carbondale, that is a huge difference in ahead and behind the front. So obviously, the front's right there, and that is again marching our way. And timing on that looks to be just after the lunch hour, mid-afternoon. Also keeping an eye on the winds. As I mentioned before, the strongest winds will be ahead of the front, and once the front passes, they'll ease. Still breezy, but they'll ease to where we get rid of the gust potential after that point. But between now and the time of the front, we have to deal with the high winds. Here is that, by the way. Looks like it'll move through. Clearly, you can see the line here across the area between 2 and 3 o'clock. We've been aiming for that all morning long. We're sticking with it right now for the arrival for the front. We got 60s ahead of it, then we start to get in the 40s behind it. As we head into 6 o'clock this evening, Louisville drops to 51, 41 into Bedford, still holding on to the 60s, very, very far southeast sections of wave country. So not as dramatic as what we're seeing in St. Louis and Carbondale, but it will be a significant drop here this evening. And then as we get into the overnight, the biggest trend here is the fact that models continue to dry things out after the front moves in, and therefore really limit how much of the freezing rain threat there will be for Friday morning's commute. Some good news there. Now, we're cold enough, and certainly colder than previous indicated in the models, because the skies are trying to clear on the models now for Friday morning. There is a chance we could have some drizzle still in our southern counties, very close to the freezing mark level here. At this point, I don't see it's a big enough concern to raise red flags about. All right, but for those of you to the north, you may be thinking, okay, well, if we're not going to get freezing rain because skies are going to clear and we're going to drop potentially into the upper 20s, what about a flash freeze kind of deal? I'll cover that in a second. I think our main issue is going to be Friday night into Saturday morning when the next slug of moisture begins to work its way in along the front. At that point, our northern counties, again, most at risk. Louisville looks to be fine. But Bedford, Seymour, North Vernon, certainly our northern tier, most at risk for freezing rain, and mainly elevated objects. It's going to be really hard for freezing rain issues to cause problems on the ground. And keep in mind, when you get very light freezing rain, by the way, it can actually cause more problems. It can stick to the objects easier, like trees and power lines and your light post and your porch. If it's coming down hard, chances are to just roll the raindrops will just roll right off the object and it won't have a chance to freeze, and they'll hit the ground. And at that point, more than likely the ground's warm enough that it's just plain rain. So the rate of rainfall is also significant for this event for northern counties. At this point, again, looks to be a light glazing of ice. By the time we get towards Saturday morning, still have potential, but we begin to lose the moisture, so we're starting to get more of a drizzle than anything. And then we'll eventually get a warm front in here by mid-morning, and it's all over with. As far as icing potential, 1/10 of an inch is going to be the threshold we are looking at. Most areas look to fall below that. Could we see a 1/10 of an inch? It's certainly possible. Now, you don't get into an issue of ice storms or anything like that until you get about 1/4 of an inch or higher. Then you're talking about winter storm warnings, stuff like that being issued. So a 1/10 of an inch, and more likely less than that, is not winter storm criteria, but it could be enough for a winter weather advisory. Indianapolis may issue one for you guys later today for this event, or they may wait until tomorrow since it's going to be a Friday night and Saturday morning event. Either way, it looks to be an advisory event for northern counties. We shall see. Looking at the actual details of the model that you just saw, for those that may be questioning, could we see a flash freeze kind of deal? Well, let me bring your attention to the setup here as we head into the time period when we get cold enough for freezing conditions to take place. The wind speeds are showing up here, sustained at 8 to 10, gusting to about 15. So more than likely the wind will take care of the roads. So at this point, we are not expecting any flash freeze scenario. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. Then as we get into the holiday on Monday and beyond that, just wave after wave after wave of low pressure moves on through. And altogether, more than 4 inches of rain could certainly fall over the next 7 to 10 days. And that's problematic for river flooding especially, but if it falls in shorter durations, we're going to get more into creeks and perhaps even flash flooding. For river flooding especially. And it's the last low, the one approaching that weekend of the 22nd. That's the one that the Euro ensembles, they're plotting the low potential. It's really centering in on a deeper low in the Midwest. This could be what we call a game changer for the Midwest in our area. Could bring with it thunderstorms. Could they be strong or severe? Wouldn't rule it out. I mean, certainly the placement is eye-catching, but it's too far to say that for sure. But I do think it's a strong enough low to really set the stage for what's going to happen after. Notice the ensembles here in the Euro. Show the warm air ahead of it. And I call it a game changer because it's likely the one that'll help bring down the pattern to get it back into a colder scenario as we head into the last few days of January. And that would line up well with the signal analysis from the Rossby waves. And remember, the purple one is the one, the T1 is the one I look at the most, and it does signify that very weekend a drop and another significant drop just after that. So, yes, warm weather until then, but the last end of January here into February is looking very interesting. Stay tuned.